Last guest before Kaja Kallas, Nathalie Loiseau. Everyone who works in security and defense knows her. She's the chairperson of the Subcommittee on Security and Defense in the European Parliament. Big changes have taken place in the European Parliament that have made some of the actions we've talked about today possible. And so, Nathalie, we're going to get right to our questions. Welcome to the Prime Minister of Estonia. Very nice to have you. Nathalie, we just came out of our last panel talking in some exasperation about the fact that when industry was asked to ramp up, they did, especially when we spoke about ammunition, one of the most obvious Estonian initiatives on ramping up ammunition supplies for Ukraine. Didn't exactly get all the way there as promised, but even Secretary General Stoltenberg says industry did what we asked them to do, and then governments fell flat. Governments are not putting in the orders in order to maximize the capacity that industry has shown it has. And I'm not just saying that because this is an industry forum. This is what the experts are saying, and you would say it yourself. European Parliament doesn't have the power to do everything, but you might be able to do something. What do you think?
Well, first of all, thank you, Terry, for organizing this and moderating this discussion. I'm delighted to have Prime Minister Kallas in this room. She's the star of European defense right now. I would like to share this impatience of industry. Yes, we invented some instruments to ramp up manufacturing of ammunitions. We voted them in urgency in the European Parliament.
But called it ASAP.
It's called ASAP for good reasons. Yeah. We also made it easier to have joint procurement, but it's not coming at the speed where it should come. And I was in Ukraine a few days ago, and we all know the situation on the front line, and the moment is now. So what should be done? First of all, we had been in favor, when I say we, the European Parliament and the European Commission, to prioritize orders towards Ukraine. And until now, still now, part of manufacturing of military equipment and ammunition is going elsewhere than from Ukraine. And I strongly disagree with this resistance of some member states who wanted to keep their hand on where this ammunition and military equipment should go. Ukraine is our priority. It is existential for Europe. We need Ukraine to win this war. We need Russia to be defeated, if not out of solidarity and generosity for our own security. But I'm able to understand that budgets are constrained, national budgets. We know it, we have known it for months. And when Kaja Kallas came and said we could borrow money together in order to procure or to send equipment to Ukraine, I immediately fully supported her, and the European Parliament fully supports her. And Thierry Breton is in the same spirit, and a number of heads of state and government as well. When we are talking about 100 billion euros, it's much less than what we did for COVID. We were right to do it for COVID. We should be right to do it now, not in a few months' time, for an existential threat on our security.
If I'm not mistaken, joint procurement would actually bring prices down, wouldn't it?
Of course.
So if they've got budget problems...
Yes, and we know that a number of member states don't have the capacity to handle procurement for military equipment to the level which is needed now. And no offense, but all the instruments are there, just use them for God's sake. And don't tell us that it's going to be debated and present in the next conclusion of the next European Council. The question is not about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk, and it's now.
Commissioner Breton, though, said that he believes things are moving ahead because the European Council did ask for a new proposal on how, what they need, where the money should be spent, how much would be required. So, I mean, that's, of course, asking for a proposal is no guarantee it would ever be fulfilled, but he felt like attention is now being paid at a level that it wasn't before. Do you agree with that at the Council level?
Yes and no. I remember being in Munich at the security conference, and we had this feeling of gloom and doom, as we all said at the end, because there were beautiful speeches, but no immediate action.
There's
no
also the death of
changer.
Navalny, so if anybody needed a reminder.
And until you see what's taking place right now in Kharkiv, the question is about patriots. It's not about the next conclusion of the next European Council. It's immediate decisions changing the situation on the ground. I cannot have people telling me, I've done my part. Well, we all have to do faster, better, and at a broader level.
Well, being in the European Parliament, you have your finger on the pulse of the feeling in member states more than you would necessarily in other institutions. So what are the excuses being given that you hear for why they can't come up with some patriots?
Well, you know about borrowing to begin with. You know what people call frugal states. It means states
but some of the frugals have given the most to Ukraine now.
That's right, but even the most is not yet enough. And we are a rich continent. We can afford it. It's a question of organizing ourselves and taking the speedy, good decisions to deliver. We can do it. I'm really confident that it is achievable. It's just that more push should be given. I fully endorse what Thierry Breton and the European Commission put forward in its communication about European Defence Industry Strategy, European Defence Industry Programme. But I'm really frustrated that it came so late in the mandate of this Commission and of this European Parliament. It was already asked for by the Versailles Summit in 2022. We are in April 2024. We have lost time. I know that things are slow in the European Union, but they were not slow for COVID. Let's regain this energy, this will to achieve, because it is our security which is at stake. If we fail there, we will be irrelevant.
And we have the luxury of being exasperated and frustrated in perfect safety in a beautiful room without having to run to a bomb shelter, right? So this is even, it even feels bad to say we're exasperated because we're not on the front lines. Our families aren't in danger.
Exactly, and we are not sending soldiers, and nobody is asking for troops at a wide level to be sent. I remember some discussions or debates about whether we should send instructors or people helping for demining. My view is that we should do it, but we are not asking for conscription, we are not asking for mobilization. It's Ukrainian military which are fighting not only for their independence, but for our security.
So this issue reminds me of another question I want to ask you before I take a couple from the audience, and that is disinformation, because there's a lot of disinformation fueled by Russia on the internet about, excuse me, about exactly that question, that European countries are sending troops and that this is then a war with NATO. That is of course not happening, but you are in the process right now of working on strengthening the European Parliament's ability to withstand Russian interference inside your own walls. Can you just give us a brief comment on that? Because if you can't do that, there could be decisions taken in the European Parliament by Russian-paid mercenaries who are allowed to vote on European policy.
No, you're absolutely right. What we discovered a few weeks ago, thanks to the Czech intelligence services, is not only that Russia is trying to interfere in our elections and in our decision-making process. This we already knew. This didn't come as a surprise. But what came as a shock is that some members of the European Parliament, if I listen to the Belgian Prime Minister, received money, accepted money to spread Russian propaganda and to try to weaken the resolve of Europeans about Ukraine. It's a very serious issue. We will have a resolution next week in the plenary session of the European Parliament. I'm the rapporteur once again on foreign interferences. Unfortunately, I had no idea when I started 3 years ago on this topic that it would come again and again and at the very heart of our institutions. We have to have a security culture. We have to protect our work and to protect our decisions from a hostile third country, which is Russia, and which is determined to interfere in our elections, in every decision we are taking.
And it's not the only one, sad to say, but that's the one you're working on now, countries which
That's
are...
not the only one, but currently that's
Yeah.
the more determined and the most dangerous, because it's a hostile country.
Okay, I would take a couple of quick questions from the audience, otherwise I'll keep going, happily. Davy, I gave you one in the last round. Philippe, stand up, introduce yourself, and I'll take one other.
Thank you, Philippe Lefebvre, British Chamber of Commerce to the EU. How satisfied...
Could you say that more slowly?
Philippe Lefebvre, British Chamber of Commerce to the EU and
There we
Belgium.
go. Okay, thank you.
How satisfied are you with European defence security cooperation with third countries, specifically, I would say, South Korea, Japan, outside of just, let's say, the US and UK, which are quite often the focus of these third-party cooperations?
Okay, I would actually like to add the UK to that.
I would probably start with the UK, because we have a good cooperation on the ground in training Ukrainian military, in making sure that we align our sanctions as much as we can. But it's on the ground, it's on a day-to-day basis, and it's still, I would say, handmade. I would definitely like to have a security agreement between the UK and the European Union, because we are facing the same threats, the same challenges, because the British type of military is comparable to the one of my home country, and because we need to really team up more together. It was an idea that was floated in the air at the moment of Brexit, then it was rebucked by a former British Prime Minister. My sense, and I'm the chair of the EU-UK Partnership Assembly, is that now mindsets have changed and people are ready to do more. And it's absolutely essential, not only for Ukraine, but if we want to protect, for instance, undersea cables, which are at the core of our economies. You Brits cannot do it by yourselves. We Europeans, not a single member state can do it by itself. So we need to work together. To answer your questions about Japan, South Korea, I have to say that they fully get it, that we have this feeling that democracies are under attack. Authoritarian regimes have turned the international world order upside down, and they are trying to use every opportunity. And what has been started by Ukraine in its full-scale invasion of Ukraine may be copied by others, and it would have consequences for all democracies. Because these authoritative regimes, they still have an imperialist mindset, the one we lost for good reasons, but they have it. They want to change history, they want to reverse history, they want to take revenge, and they hate democracy because we are the evidence that their regime is not functional, and that our democracies, with all their slowness and sometimes hesitations, are more resilient. So they want to weaken us through interferences, through hybrid warfare. You mentioned corruption, you mentioned information manipulation. And I'm destroying the microphone, doing what I had promised not to do, through a number of instruments, and they have started doing it a few decades ago. It's a long time investment that these autocracies have been doing in our democracy. So yes, we have to work together. We have to learn lessons from a place like Taiwan, which is absolutely commendable in the way it is fighting against foreign interferences. We have to realize that we have the same challenges. I'm also a strong supporter of Armenia for a good reason, because it's a democracy, because they had their Velvet Revolution, because they are not willing to attack their neighbors, but they are threatened by some of their neighbors, and because they have been abandoned by Russia for the very reason that they have turned into a democracy, fighting against corruption and succeeding in doing what they do. So we have to realize it's a little bit, it looks old-fashioned if I talk about the free word, but I think it's now, again, a reality. And if we want to be relevant, if we want to be perceived as reliable partners, if we want to exercise some kind of soft leadership, we have to harden our defense instruments and to be seen as the ones who don't bow to pressure from authoritarian regimes.
I think that's a good place to end, and we're out of time, and we have the Prime Minister sitting right here, and I'm sure we all want to give her time to come up. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for